Have you ever spent a whole evening studying hard? Maybe it was for a test or a big meeting. You read the pages over and over again. In that moment, everything feels very clear. You feel confident. You feel ready. But then the next morning comes. You sit down, you take a deep breath, and suddenly, your mind is blank. It's totally empty. It's like your brain just decided to go on an unannounced coffee break without you. It feels like all that time and effort just disappeared. It's like it vanished into thin air. Many of us face this problem every single day. We work hard, but our brains just don't seem to keep the information. You might think your memory is just bad, or maybe you think you aren't good at learning new things, but that is usually not the case. I have some good news for you. Today, I'm going to share a simple way to make your learning stick forever. It's not about working harder. It's not about spending more hours with your books. It's about changing how you use your mind. By the end of this session, you will understand how to turn your study time into real knowledge that lasts. As you can see on the screen, we have some key points to follow. These points are the map for our conversation today. They will help you see exactly what you need to do to improve your memory. We are going to explore why our old habits fail us. We'll see how a few small changes can lead to big results. Let's look at why we often feel like we are learning when we actually aren't. We often mistake familiarity for mastery. Listen and repeat. We often mistake familiarity for mastery. One more time. Listen and repeat. We often mistake familiarity for mastery. Think about those times you've spent hours reading a textbook. You sit at your desk for a long time. You use a bright pen to highlight the important parts. That feels like real progress, doesn't it? But then the next morning comes. You try to remember one simple fact from your study session. Suddenly, your mind is just blank. It is completely empty. This is a very common problem for many of us. We often use study methods that feel really good and easy. However, these methods actually don't work very well. They are not effective. We think we are learning because the process is smooth and comfortable, but there is a big difference between feeling like you know something and actually keeping that knowledge in your brain. I recently read a best-selling book called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning. This book explains why our favorite ways to study are often the least effective. It shows us that just looking at information again and again is not enough. It's not enough to make it stay. It is so frustrating to spend your whole evening with a book and have nothing to show for it the next day. You put in the time, you spend the effort, but the results are just not there. You might even start to think that you are not a good learner, but that is not true. You just need a better way to make the information stay in your head. You need a better strategy. I want to share a quick story about a learner who faced this exact problem. Let's look at this learner who spent many nights at his desk. He had a very thick textbook in front of him. He wanted to learn every detail, so he read the first chapter. Then he read it again. He even read it a third time. As he moved his eyes across the pages, he used a bright yellow pen to highlight the important parts. Everything seemed so clear to him, you know? He felt very smart and ready for his test. He told himself that he finally understood the material. He felt like he had it all down. But here is the problem. This feeling of confidence can be a trap, right? Because the words were right there on the page. His brain didn't have to work hard. He thought he was learning, but he was actually just getting used to seeing the words. It felt easy, and that made him feel safe. The next morning, he sat down and closed his book. He tried to remember the main ideas from the night before, but his mind was completely blank. He could not remember a single important point. A deep feeling of frustration hit him because he had spent hours studying. He realized that looking at the information many times did not mean the information was in his head. This is what we call the illusion of knowing. It's when you think you know something, but you really don't. It is a very common struggle, and it happens to almost everyone. He felt like he wasted his time, and he didn't know what to do next. He was stuck. So, what is the real way to learn? It starts with one big idea. We call this idea recall. You might think you know something because it looks familiar, but real learning is different. It is not about how easy it feels when you read your notes. True growth is about what you can do later. Let's define recall simply. Simply put, it is the act of pulling information out of your mind. Think about it like this. When you read a book, the information goes into your eyes. But when you use recall, the information comes out of your brain. You are searching your memory for the answer. Searching your memory is the most important part of learning. Many learners spend hours looking at their textbooks. A learner might read the same page 5 times. You might highlight every sentence. The process feels good because the words look easy. But this is a trap. Just looking at the words does not mean you own the knowledge. Listen and repeat. Just looking at the words does not mean you own the knowledge. One more time. Listen and repeat. Just looking at the words does not mean you own the knowledge. Real learning is defined by retrieval. In other words, a learner can find the information in his head after some time has passed. If he can't pull it out of his mind, he hasn't truly learned it yet. Remember, looking at your notes is not enough. It feels comfortable, but it doesn't build a strong memory. You need to practice getting the information out. Testing yourself is necessary. Such effort makes knowledge stay with you forever. That creates the difference between feeling like you know and actually knowing. But there is a catch. This method doesn't always feel easy. Sometimes learning feels really difficult. You might feel like you are losing because you cannot recall a word or a fact immediately. I personally find that my brain would much rather be on the couch with a snack. But here's a secret. That struggle is actually very helpful. When your brain has to work hard to find information, it is building power. Think of it like exercise for your mind. If the weight is too light, your muscles do not grow. Learning works the same way. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you meet someone at a store. A few minutes later, you try to remember his name. It feels like the name is on the tip of your tongue, but you cannot grab it. You stop and think hard for a moment. Finally, you find it. That short period of searching was a productive struggle. Because you worked for that information, you will probably keep his name in your mind much better next time. Here is another example. A learner is trying to practice his English speaking. He wants to use a new word he saw yesterday. Instead of checking his phone for the answer, the learner pauses. He tries to pull the word from his mind. It feels slow and maybe a little frustrating. However, this effort is exactly what helps his memory grow. He is building a stronger path in his brain for that word. We need to change how we think about this feeling. Remember, feeling stuck does not mean you are failing. Difficulty is a signal that real progress is happening right now. Listen and repeat. Difficulty is a signal that real progress is happening right now. One more time. Listen and repeat. Difficulty is a signal that real progress is happening right now. If your study feels too easy, you might not be learning much at all. When it feels a bit tough, your brain is doing the hard work to make that knowledge last. Let's see how Ethan used these ideas to change his life. Ethan is a hard worker, and he recently faced a very big challenge. He prepared for a very important presentation at his job. This wasn't just a small meeting. It was a presentation for his whole team and his manager. He really wanted to do a great job. Ethan had many pages of notes. He spent days writing down every detail he wanted to say. But as the day of the presentation got closer, he started to feel very overwhelmed. Have you ever felt that way? You look at a pile of notes or a long list of tasks, and your head starts to spin. It feels like there is just too much information to keep inside your brain. He was worried that he would stand in front of everyone and suddenly forget his key points. He didn't want to look at his notes the whole time. He wanted the information to be right there in his mind when he needed it. His goal was to stop forgetting the most important parts of his speech. He felt a lot of pressure to be perfect, but he didn't know how to make the knowledge stay in his head. We all know that feeling of looking at a page and hoping the words just stay there. Ethan spent hours and hours looking at his slides. He thought that if he just looked at them enough times, he would remember everything. He was trying his best, but he felt like he was fighting against his own memory. It is a very frustrating place to be, right? You put in the time, but you still feel unsure. Listen and repeat. You put in the time, but you still feel unsure. One more time. Listen and repeat. You put in the time, but you still feel unsure. He tried his old way first, but it didn't work. So, the learner sat at his desk late into the night. He had his laptop open, his notes were spread out everywhere. He really believed that the best way to prepare was to read his slides over and over again. He thought reading them many times was the secret. He spent hours just looking at the screen. He read the first page, then he read the second page, then he started from the beginning all over again. By the time he went to bed, he felt quite good. He felt confident. The information looked very familiar to him. Because it looked familiar, he thought he was ready. He thought he knew it all. However, the next morning, everything changed. The learner woke up and tried to practice his opening words. He stood in front of the mirror. He took a deep breath and waited. But nothing happened. No words came out. He realized with a shock that he could not remember the first 3 sentences of his own presentation. It was a very scary moment. It was frightening. Even though he spent all night reading, the words were just not there when he needed them. They had disappeared. He felt his heart sink as he stood there in silence. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt that sinking feeling? It is so frustrating to put in the effort and get no results. Listen and repeat. It is so frustrating to put in the effort and get no results. One more time. Listen and repeat. It is so frustrating to put in the effort and get no results. It feels like a waste of time. He began to worry deeply that he would fail his big presentation at work. He imagined himself standing in front of his manager with nothing to say. This fear of failure made him feel even more stressed. He was very anxious. He realized that his old way of studying was not working. His old method failed him, but he did not understand why. He felt completely lost. He was unsure of what to do next. Then he decided to try a different approach. He decided to try a new way. The learner realized that reading his notes over and over was not helping him. It was not effective. The plan was to try something completely different for his big presentation. He needed a new strategy. First, he changed how he managed his time. He changed his schedule. Instead of sitting at his desk for many hours without a break, he used a method called spacing. Spacing means leaving time between your study sessions. This new approach involved studying for a short time and then stepping away to do something else. He took breaks. A short walk or washing the dishes helped him clear his head. It gave his brain a rest. By leaving a gap of time, he allowed himself to forget just a little bit. This gap is important. It is very useful. This is because it makes the brain work harder when you return to the information later. It makes your brain exercise. That afternoon, he sat down again. But this time, he did not open his slides. He kept them closed. He kept his eyes closed and tried to explain his ideas out loud to the empty room. He spoke to the air. The room was very quiet. At first, the words did not come easily. He struggled. He felt a bit frustrated. His heart started to beat faster. However, he stayed calm. He kept trying to pull the information from his mind. He was searching his memory. This kind of effort is exactly what we talked about earlier. It is called active recall, which means pulling information out of your brain. Even though it felt slow and difficult, he knew his brain was actually getting stronger. It was getting tougher. His brain was building a much better memory because of that struggle. Every time he struggled to remember a point, he was making that knowledge last longer. Listen and repeat. Every time he struggled to remember a point, he was making that knowledge last longer. One more time. Listen and repeat. Every time he struggled to remember a point, he was making that knowledge last longer. He was making it stick. He did not let the difficulties stop him this time. He kept going. The result was something he didn't expect. It was a surprise. Finally, the morning of the big presentation arrived. The day was here. It turns out staring at a page doesn't magically download the information into your skull. The learner stood in front of his colleagues. He felt ready to speak. He felt prepared. In the past, he would have been nervous. He would have been reaching for his notes every few seconds. He would have been checking his papers constantly. But this time, something felt very different. As he began to talk, the words came to him naturally. They flowed out. He did not have to struggle to find the right sentences. They were just there. They were waiting in his mind. He looked at his slides, but only to click to the next one. He didn't really need them. Reading from them was not necessary at all. This was because the knowledge was truly stuck in his mind. It was firmly planted there. It wasn't just a feeling of knowing, you know? It wasn't just a vague idea. It was real. He could explain his ideas clearly. He was very easy to understand. This was because he had already practiced pulling those ideas out of his memory many times before. He had done the hard work already. By the end of the presentation, his manager was smiling. He felt a huge sense of relief. He felt a great weight lift off his shoulders. He had done it. He succeeded. Walking back to his desk, he thought about why this time was so successful. He thought about his success. He realized that his old way of just reading and rereading was a waste of time. It was not helpful. The real power came from the moments when he closed his eyes and tried to remember. The power was in the effort. He learned that testing himself was the key to building a memory that lasts. Self-testing was the secret. It was hard work during his study sessions. It was a challenge. But that effort paid off when it mattered most. It was worth it. He finally understood that real learning happens when you challenge your brain. Listen and repeat. Real learning happens when you challenge your brain. One more time. Listen and repeat. Real learning happens when you challenge your brain. You have to ask your brain to find the information on its own. Now, how can you do this too? How can you use these steps? Here are some ways to start. So, how can you start using these powerful methods in your own study routine today? Well, you can begin right now. Step 1 is very simple, but it really works. It is very effective. When you finish reading a chapter or listening to a lesson, just stop. Stop for a moment. Close your book or turn off your phone. Then, ask yourself one question. What were the main ideas I just learned? This is how you practice recall. Recall means remembering something on your own. You are not just looking at the words again. No, you are pulling the information out of your own mind. Now, it might feel a bit difficult to remember everything at first. It might feel like a challenge. However, you should welcome that feeling. Embrace it. It means your memory is getting stronger. It is like a workout for your brain. Try to explain the concepts in your own words. Listen and repeat. Try to explain the concepts in your own words. One more time. Listen and repeat. Try to explain the concepts in your own words. Do this without looking at your notes. One more time. Listen and repeat. Try to explain the concepts in your own words. Do this without looking at your notes. Step 2 is all about mixing. We sometimes call this interleaving. Most people like to study one single topic for a long time. For example, they might spend 2 hours only on grammar. But here is the thing. You will learn much more if you mix different topics in one session. You can spend 20 minutes on grammar and then switch. Switch to some new vocabulary. After that, you could try a short listening task. When you mix your study topics, your brain learns something very important. It learns how to tell the difference between different ideas. It learns to distinguish them. This helps you use your knowledge in many different situations. It makes your learning much more useful for real life. Listen and repeat. It makes your learning much more useful for real life. One more time. Listen and repeat. It makes your learning much more useful for real life. By following these 2 steps, you are building a foundation that lasts. You are building a strong base. And there is one more step to make it even stronger. Now we come to the 3rd step. This is the most powerful one. Step 3 is to use retrieval practice. This means you should take a practice test even before you feel ready. You might think you need to study more first. You might want to read more, but that is actually not true. The act of pulling information out of your mind is what makes the memory stay. Listen and repeat. The act of pulling information out of your mind is what makes the memory stay. One more time. Listen and repeat. The act of pulling information out of your mind is what makes the memory stay. It makes the information stick. It is like building a bridge in your brain. Every time you try to remember something, that bridge gets stronger. It becomes more solid. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might feel a bit nervous. That is okay. A common obstacle or a common problem is the fear of getting the wrong answer. Many listeners tell me they are afraid to test themselves. They do not want to see a low score. They think making a mistake means they are failing. They think they are not making progress. But here is the secret. Mistakes are actually a very important part of the memory building process. They are part of learning. When you get an answer wrong and then find the correct one, your brain pays more attention. It notices the error. It realized there was a gap in your knowledge. A gap is like a missing piece, so your brain works harder to fill it. Think about the learner we discussed earlier. He did not wait until he was perfect to practice his presentation. He did not wait at all. He tested himself early, and he tested himself often. Even when he forgot a word, he did not give up. He just looked it up and tried again. This struggle is exactly what helped him succeed later. It made him successful. So please, do not be afraid of those wrong answers. They are just signs. They are signs that your brain is learning. Try to see every mistake as a step toward truly owning that knowledge. Listen and repeat. Try to see every mistake as a step toward truly owning that knowledge. One more time. Listen and repeat. Try to see every mistake as a step toward truly owning that knowledge. Before we go, I have one last piece of wisdom for you. One last piece of advice. Think about your learning journey for a moment. It is helpful to remember that learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Listen and repeat. It is helpful to remember that learning is a marathon, not a sprint. One more time. Listen and repeat. It is helpful to remember that learning is a marathon, not a sprint. And let's be honest, most of us would rather be marathon watching a favorite show instead. A marathon is a very long race. It is not a fast, short run. Sometimes we want to learn everything in one night. We want to feel smart immediately. But real growth happens slowly over time. You should try to be patient with your brain. Give yourself some time. It is working hard to build new paths for your knowledge. When a learner feels like he is struggling, he is actually making progress. He is moving forward. His brain is busy organizing all that new information. This process takes time and it takes energy. I have a small tip for you to try. You do not need to study for hours to see a difference. You can start with just 5 minutes of recall every day. Just 5 minutes. Maybe you are waiting for a bus or drinking your morning coffee. In those 5 minutes, put away your notes. Ask yourself what you remember from yesterday. This small habit is very powerful. It is very strong. It trains your mind to find information quickly. Do not worry if you cannot remember everything at first. That is a normal part of the process. If a learner finds it difficult, he should not give up. He should keep going. He should realize that the effort itself is what makes the memory stay. Listen and repeat. The effort itself is what makes the memory stay. One more time. Listen and repeat. The effort itself is what makes the memory stay. The hard work makes it stick. Just 5 minutes can change how you think about your progress. Be kind to yourself as you practice this new way of studying. You are building a foundation that will last for a long time. It is about small steps every single day. Your brain will thank you for the extra space to grow. Let's quickly review what we covered today. Let's look at the main ideas we explored today. These will help your memory stay strong. Real learning happens when you pull information out of your head. Listen and repeat. Real learning happens when you pull information out of your head. One more time. Listen and repeat. Real learning happens when you pull information out of your head. You do this after some time has passed. We call this recall. It means bringing information back from your memory. It is much more powerful than just reading your notes again. Much more effective. You also need to use spacing. This means you should leave gaps of time between your study sessions. Don't study everything at once. When you let yourself forget a little bit, the memory becomes much deeper. It becomes stronger when you finally review it. Another great tool is mixing. Instead of focusing on one single topic for hours, try to study different things in one session. This helps you see the differences between ideas. It makes your knowledge more flexible. It helps you adapt. Remember that feeling a bit frustrated is actually a good sign. When learning feels difficult, your brain is busy. It is building stronger connections. This effort shows that you are truly growing. You are making progress. If everything feels too easy, be careful. You might just be recognizing the words without actually learning them. To put this into practice, follow these 3 steps. First, close your book or turn off your screen. Ask yourself what you just learned. The goal is to explain the main points in your own words. Use your own simple language. Second, use mixing. Switch between different subjects or skills during your practice time. Third, use retrieval. Take a practice test even before you feel fully prepared. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. Every error you correct helps the information stick. It stays in your mind forever. These simple changes will transform the way you study. They will help you remember what you learned for a very long time. You can do this. I know you can. You have a very powerful tool inside your head. Your brain is capable of amazing things. It can do so much, even if it feels tired or slow sometimes. We often think that learning is about being born smart, but really, it is about training. It is about how we train our minds to hold on to information. You might feel like you forget things easily, but that is often because you haven't used the right tools yet. Your brain is like a muscle, right? It gets stronger every time you challenge it. It grows when you work it hard. When you feel that struggle, your brain is actually building new paths. It is growing and changing in ways you cannot see. I want to encourage you to try just one thing today. You don't need to study for hours. Just take 5 minutes, that's all. Close your eyes and try one recall session. Think about something you learned recently. It could be a new word or a simple idea. Pulling that information out of your mind is the goal. Do it without looking at your notes. It might feel a bit difficult. You might not remember everything perfectly. That is okay. The effort itself is what makes the memory stay. The hard work makes it stick. By doing this once today, you are sending a message. You are telling your brain that this information is important. You are taking control of your own learning. Believe in your ability to grow. Every small step you